By the time the Ardent crossed the ragged edge of the Valoran expanse, the stars themselves seemed to blink slower. Gravimetric readings ran like spilled ink across the nav screen. Radiation hissed and then sobered into a steady whisper. The crew joked about old sailors' omens, how the sea went glassy before a hurricane. But no one laughed long. Out here the constellations carried new names: Forgotten Choir, the Broken Dial, the Sleeve of God. Charts ended. Guesses began. Commander Darren Holt had made a ritual of the observation deck. He liked the silence, the view through the forward blister where the armor glass bowed into vacuum like a taut drumhead. The nebula had lilac at the rim, bruising to royal blue lay over the darkness like gauze. Dust grains flickered in the navigation lights. A slow storm against infinity. He checked his reflection, the squint at the corners of gray eyes. The dark barber's stubble he always meant to shave, then turned to the floating schematics that skinned the room and data. The Ardent's heart showed as a chrome spindle, the Dauphin drive, humming at 1/3 power, feeding the ship a low constant acceleration. The crew's heartbeat in dots of transponders. A dozen lives moving in loops, bridge, mess, labs, bunks with the comfortable regularity of a clock. "Commander on deck," said Veer without looking up, the formal greeting flattened by long habit. Veer's station wrapped him in cool green light. He didn't so much sit as inhabit the chair, a narrow, restless presence, half his attention on the navigational tensors, half on anything that might threaten them. Holt drifted closer, hand to the soft rail. "How's our glass?" "Stable enough, sir," Veer replied. "We're riding a gentle gradient. The expanse has pockets, though, like shoals. I wouldn't throw a rock without asking first." Noted. He watched the numbers breathe. "How's the crew? Hungry for something that isn't a diagnostic?" "You promised a ghost before dinner." "I promised a rumor," Holt said. "Ghosts cost extra." As if on cue, Dr. Mary Chen breezed in. Lab coat abandoned for a midnight jumpsuit. She was small, kinetic, perpetually in motion like thoughts struggling to outrun a mouth. "You'd look like cats at a fishbowl." "Anything." "Empty space," Veer said. "Empty spaces are where history hides." Holt allowed himself a thin smile. "And ambushes. Relax. If anything eats us, you can write 'I told you so' on my tomb slab." Mary said, then softened. "I brought coffee. Synthetic, but it forgives us." They had just taken their first sips when the room inhaled. A subtle shift rippled through the deck plating. The tiniest of tremors found bone. Holt felt the change in the same place he sensed late-night storms as a child, the base of his skull. Veer's fingers flickered. "Field spike. Source?" Holt said. Veer's head tilted, listening to the math. "Transient. Local to the forward band. Not stellar. Not normal." A pause, and there it is again. "No, that is audio." The ship's comwall lit, a thin line of noise amplifying into a ragged shape. It wasn't a tone. It was a voice, brittle with distance and folded through static until each syllable seemed soldered to the next. "Ease. I'm beg. You. Help." The three of them locked eyes. That almost mythic moment when disbelief is outvoted by evidence. Holt put his cup down. "Source that. Triangulating," Veer murmured. He stitched vectors, threw them across the inverted dome of space the way surveyors throw strings across a construction frame. A pale pinprick pulsed onto the forward projection. A mote tucked against the ragged skirts of a gas giant that rotated like a sleeping colossus. 6 faint rings arched around it, thin as spider silk and twice as fragile. "Moon," Veer said. "Minor, high silica content, exosphere only. No registry, no beacon, no traffic. Dead rock." The voice returned, slightly clearer, as if nudged forward by their attention. Please, I'm. Beg you. Help me." Mary's breath caught. "It's human, or it wants us to think so," Holt said. His voice had the neutral tenor that patience wears to keep fear from dressing itself in authority. "Run the modulation against the human phonetic set. Look for artifacts." Veer sent their machine ears to work. The system began making neat, merciless notes on the wall: signal-to-noise ratio, compression scars, harmonic decay, bitwise anomalies. Meanwhile, the call came again, 3 words marred by a stumble of static pleas. "I'm begging you," and faded like a flung pebble losing courage against a lake. "It's on a cycling loop," Veer said. "Duration, 9 seconds. Variance, unpredictable. Decay pattern suggests you're hearing it through a refractive medium. Could be scattered by dust layers or deliberately masked. Holt called the bridge to full crew. Alarms did not howl. No red light bled. The Ardent had modes for urgency quieter than panic. Honed over years of long-haul discipline. Doors sealed with a whisper, voices lowered. Chairs aligned to points of responsibility. The crew arrived in 2s and 3s, snapping into places that had the anatomy of a habit. Chief Engineer Raj Patel checked in from the spine. "Drive's sweet. Give me a direction, and I'll lean the whole ship that way." Quartermaster Ileana Quill. Coro appeared at the rail with a harness slung over one shoulder and a look that said, she'd slept in her boots for a week and liked it. "You're about to ask me for a landing kit." Eva Specialist Callum Osei, soft-spoken and broad across the shoulders, stood beside Medic Arya Saig, who was already counting in her head what she'd need to keep a stranger alive. Holt briefed them with no drama. Dead moon, ghost transmission, unknown risk. He threaded caution through the words like wire through beads. Then he let quiet settle, the kind that invites objections. "Could be a lure," Quill said. "Because someone always had to say it. It could." Holt agreed. He looked at them. "And if it isn't, someone dies because we feared his story." Mary touched the comwall. "Enlarging the moon." The gas giant catalog designation VXE for 7 dominated the frame. Its storms banded in creams and bruised slate, a pallid cyclopean eye yawning at the pole. The moonlit 447C for one of a human name glimmered like a dropped pearl. Scans ran dry, regolith, basaltic bedrock, anemic gravity. No water, no atmosphere thick enough to hold sound. No reason for life at all, visual on surface anomalies, Mary said, reaching like a conductor. The map sharpened. Sinuous lines, straight segments, right angles where no geology keeps right angles long. Beneath the dust's monochrome lay a spiderwork of structure, some of it symmetrical, some of it not. Veer's voice thinned. "There's an emission source, microsignal, just under the rock. Not massed enough to be modern human infrastructure, but definitely technology." Holt's gaze held, magnetized. He had led ground teams to abandoned mining shacks where generators still ticked warm. And he had walked into cathedrals built by species no human would ever meet. He knew the feel of human manufacture as surely as he knew the weight of his own hand. What glinted under 447C wasn't human, and yet the voice was. Decision. Veer asked, deliberately clinical. Holt felt the old weight settle on his sternum, the one he privately named command's tax. "We go down," he said. "Small team. Standard risk footprint. Osei, Quill, Dr. Chen, Arya. Veer, you have the bridge. Keep the tether tight. If my heart rate jumps, yank us back by our collars." Veer said. "Raj, give me a shuttle with legs. I'll give you a shuttle that could kiss a comet and ask for a second date." They broke like a school of fish, each turning their bodies toward the task that fit them as if destiny were just a word for practice. Holt allowed himself one more look at the moon's soft, dispassionate face. Then he went to gear up. The hangar deck smelled faintly of ozone and lubricant, the cologne of sure machines. Shuttle Caliban crouched under gantry lights, a bellyful of thrusters and an attitude Holt trusted, a craft with scars buffed into stories, and a cockpit that fit like a glove worn to battle and weddings both. Quill tossed him a harness. "I added a redundant spool on the lifeline. If 447C eats the first, we've got a second to argue with." "Argue fast," Holt said. Buckling in, Arya rolled the med case down the ramp, its white surface already scuffed by other rescues that had ended in triage and salvage alike. "I stocked both dry and wet kits, in case there's atmosphere in pockets." "There isn't," Osei said mildly, checking seals with the same gentle competence he offered to friendships. "You'd taste it from orbit." "Hope's a habit," Arya replied. Mary arrived last, tablet clipped to her wrist, eyes bouncing between the shuttle and a personal constellation of ideas. "We're landing near a fracture line that Veer thinks might be an access seam," she said, addressing the air. "Whatever's below, it built with thought. I know the smell of thought." She caught Holt's look. "Yes, that sounded pretentious. Yes, I still stand by it." Holt sealed the ramp. "Caliban, wake," he said, and the shuttle did, a gentle thumb through the deck. A green sea of diagnostics rolling to blue. Veer's voice came over the cabin audio. All business now. Dropline is live. Telemetry clean. I'm feeding you a vector to minimize dust intrusion. Keep your footprint light. Regolith cohesion is weak. Caliban, you'll get some slough at touchdown. Copy, Holt said. He felt the familiar shift as the shuttle undocked, the world narrowing to a cockpit window and the one thing beyond it. The Ardent fell away, a long silver fish with her flukes folded. And then the gas giant rose and filled the universe with patient rage. The rings flashed like knife edges. The moon grew. Pretty, Osei said. Dead things often are, Quill replied. They rode the descent like a feather rides a draft, thrusters whispering, dust pluming in slow fireworks that fell like gray rain. The surface revealed itself in layers, ripples set by ancient quakes, shattered plates where thermal stress had taught stone to break, a pattern that refused to be random. Lines met and met again, forming a lattice that had been buried, then bared, then buried once more by the windless eternity of fall and fall and fall, touching down. Holt said. The Caliban kissed the regolith, and the dust came up like breath, curling away and settling as if discouraged. Struts flexed, gauges nodded. The cabin went still. Outside, the world was the color of old bone. Shadows had a knife's edge. The gas giant hung on the horizon, a deity in sleep, ring light gilding the wreckage of eons. A short walk away, the ground dipped into a gash, a fracture as clean as a ruled line deep. And too regular to be simple geology. Comms check, Veer said in their ears. Solid, Holt replied. He felt the tether's faint pull, the digital umbilicus to their ship. Masks on, vitals live. Osei, your point. Quill, on his shoulder, Dr. Chen. Eyes on the floor tell us if we're stepping on anything that wants to argue Euclid. Arya, you're with me. They stepped down into dust that fought to be powder and failed. Grains too angular to nest. Their boots made crisp ovals. The fracture mouth yawned. Inside, the light thinned and sharpened at once, slicing shadows into braids. Signal strength. Holt asked. Up a hair, Veer said. And the cycle's drifting. We're closer to the origin, but there's something bouncing it. Mary crouched, gloved fingers hovering over the stone. This isn't carved. It's grown. Not biologically, more like a program that prefers certain outcomes. Most matter minimizes energy. This elegantly compromises. Speak like a person, Doc, Quill said. It's like someone gave the moon a suggestion and time did the rest. They moved inward. The fracture resolved into a corridor whose loss of randomness became a kind of staccato beauty. Every 20 meters, a recurring motif in the patterning. Every 40, a bulge that might have once housed a node. Every 80, a shift in the grain that suggested what? A change in builder, a change in purpose, motion. Holt asked. Only yours, Veer said. Ambient temperature dropping a degree every 10 meters. No air, radiation within tolerances. Your heart rate's up, Commander. I'm aware, Holt said. It was not fear, not exactly. It was an ache-like homesickness, but for a home he hadn't yet seen. They reached a chamber that insisted on being a room even in the language of stone. The ceiling lifted. The latticework deepened. A daze, half buried, broke the flat with the certainty of intention. On it, a pillar had shattered long ago, its shards glinting with microfacets that were content to be dust and jewel alike. And at the base of the ruin, curled in a posture the body chooses when it has learned too much of cold, lay a person. Osei's hand went up an instinctive stop. Holt was already moving, Arya on his flank. He saw at once what the environment would do to flesh. Embrittle, leach, arrest. He had seen bodies brought from the black between ships, skin like porcelain, eyes open on a universe that gave nothing back. But this body breathed. God, Arya whispered. She was all motion now, scanner out, needles ready, seals examined. The ritual of tending a life rehearsed so often it had become prayer. Life signs thin as thread, but there. Temperatures dangerously low, pulses irregular. She frowned, not frightened. Curious. I don't recognize the rhythm. The woman's clothing, if that was the word, was a rag of fabric that refused to focus, as if each glance found it in a slightly different weave. Underneath, skin pale to translucence, hair matted with a fine powder the color of the moon itself. Fingers cracked at the knuckles, but unbloodied, as if even her wounds had been vacuum-tolerant. Holt knelt. It was a movement he'd made before, in deserts and shipyards and on a glacier that sang to itself at night. He set his palm against her shoulder through the glove, felt the faintest heat. "Hey," he said, because people deserved a gentle word before they deserved explanations. "You're not alone." Lids fluttered. Eyes opened, human eyes, brown, the color of wet bark. They found him, and for a beat there was nothing. The way a child first waking tries to remember its name. Then terror. Not wild, not flailing, something more rational, more contained. Like a scientist seeing the problem at last and having no pencil. Please." The word came raw, old, as if it had crossed too many winters. Her lips barely moved. The sound was almost entirely the calm's capture of a whisper transmitted through suit fabric. "Don't leave me." Arya's voice went soft, the one she used to speak to those hovering on the border where bodies are ideas. "We're here. You're safe. We're going to bring you someplace warm." The woman's hand moved slow as a tied hand found Holt's wrist. The grip had little strength but astonishing intent. "No," she said, with sudden clarity, and her eyes flicked past him toward the broken pillar and the engrossed design beneath their feet. "You don't understand. They're coming back." "Who?" Holt asked. Her mouth trembled around a word that didn't quite rhyme. "Arch." It broke into a rasp. "Destroy this place." Before, the floor trembled. Not much, not enough to stagger, but enough to make the shards on the days ring against each other like chilled crystal. In Holt's ear, Veer's voice tightened. "Seismic anomaly." That wasn't title. That was local. "Copy," Holt said, and his voice became a more careful thing. "We're extracting." "Osei, get the litter." "Arya, seal her." "Quill, perimeter." Quill was already moving, rifle low but ready. Eyes scanning the angles where straight lines do what animals do, hide predators. Osei unfolded the collapsible litter with the practiced speed of an origami master under fire. Arya skimmed sealant across the ragged edge of the woman's suit. A garment, hesitated, then applied an adaptive foil over her chest, watching the medpac's numbers nervously, and then with a little relief. The pulse stabilized a fraction, still unusual. Still syncopated like a song from a country they had never learned. Holt lifted the woman, no more than a drift of weight in 0.2 grams, and was shocked by the heat that flamed briefly through her as if the contact had woken embers under ash. Her head lolled against his shoulder. Her breath fanned his collar. He stared, because something flickered across her temple. A brief geometry of light that vanished so quickly he could have dismissed it as a trick of reflective dust. He didn't dismiss it. "Veer, ready the bay," he said. "We're coming up. Tell Raj to keep the drive spooled. If this moon chooses to argue, I want the last word." "Understood," Veer said. "Commander." That word she tried to say, did you hear it? Holt was already turning toward the light at the end of the fracture, already measuring steps to seconds. "I heard enough," he said. Behind them, the pillar's innards gave a soft sound like a breath taken after too long underwater. The lattice beneath their boots brightened by an increment most eyes would have missed. Miri didn't miss it. "It's waking," she said, not with fear, but with the terrible awe of a scholar watching a legend stand up. "Then we're leaving before it finishes the sentence," Holt replied. They moved as one, Osei at point, Quill shadowing him, Miri's head angling to pack a lifetime's study into glances. Arya walking backward to watch their charge. Holt in the center with a life in his arms and a pressure at the back of his thoughts. Where bad ideas grow teeth. At the fracture mouth, the gas giant's light strode in and burned the chamber clean. The Caliban crouched ahead like a faithful dog anxious to bite something on command. Dust leapt under their boots, hung, drifted. The tremor came again just once, then gone as if something vast below had turned over in its sleep. In the shuttle, everything narrowed to the well-rehearsed violence of departure. Seals slamming, clamps lifting, engines asking and getting, instruments bidding the world to move. Arya clipped the litter into the med cradle. The woman's eyes opened once more as if jerked by an inner tide, found Holt, and tried again to parcel out a warning. "Please," she said, and now there was grief in it so deep it bent the sound. "I'm begging you, don't let them." The sentence never finished. Consciousness slipped from her like a scarf falling from fingers. The medpack pinged a petty, useful sound in a universe of catastrophes. Holt strapped in and felt the Caliban leap. The moon fell away. The fracture closed like an eye. The gas giant rolled its sleepless dream. Above, the Ardent opened her belly and reached for them. Only when the shuttle kissed the cradle and the hangar swallowed them did Holt let himself hear the echo the voice had left inside him. An echo that didn't sound like a stranger at all, but like a memory he had tried to forget. Please, I'm begging you. He looked at the woman on the cradle and realized that rescue is always the first mistake, and the only hope, and that every decision worth making is a coin flipped over an abyss. Bridge, he said, voice steady again by force of will. We have her. Prep quarantine, cold stabilization, full scan, and veer. Keep our eyes on that moon. Aye, Commander, came the reply. Then softer, as if the ship itself breathed the words into his ear. Welcome back. Holt watched the med team usher the stranger toward a room where warmth and questions waited in equal measure. The deck hummed beneath his feet, the song of engines that took courage personally. He exhaled. Out beyond the hull, the Valoran expanse did not blink or bend. It merely watched and waited and kept its secrets like teeth behind a smile. And deep under a dead moon's dust, something that called itself a lattice all angles. And Patience decided it had sensed enough to change. The medical bay of the Ardent was quieter than a cathedral at midnight. The hum of life support systems and the gentle hiss of atmospheric recyclers were the only sounds that filled the sterile, silver-lit chamber. Commander Darren Holt stood just beyond the quarantine glass, watching the woman they had pulled from the ruins. She lay cocooned in a stasis field, her chest rising and falling in shallow, uneven breaths. Tiny threads of biogel tubing snaked from her arms into diagnostic machines that painted her condition in cold, pulsing graphs. Vitals are stable, for now, said Dr. Arya Sayeg, eyes glued to a holodisplay. Body temperature's still low, but it's rising slowly. Whatever she's been through, it's a miracle she's alive at all. Holt folded his arms. What's the verdict? Arya hesitated. That's just it. I don't have one. Her biology is human, mostly, but her cell structure's different, subtle alterations at the mitochondrial level. There's a resilience I've never seen before. Her DNA's human, but there are sequences I can't match to any known genome. Could she be a genetically modified colonist? Asked Veer, who had joined them from the bridge. Maybe, Arya said. But if she is, then whoever modified her was centuries ahead of us. Holt turned his gaze back to the woman. The question gnawed at him. How could someone be alive down there, alone, on a dead moon, with no records of settlement or activity for light years? As if sensing their curiosity, the woman stirred. Her eyelids fluttered, revealing eyes the color of deep earth, human, and yet carrying a weight that didn't belong to someone who'd just been rescued. Arya stepped forward immediately. You're aboard the starship Ardent, she said gently. You're safe now. Do you remember your name? For a moment, silence. Then, her lips parted. Alira. The word was soft but clear, spoken with an accent none of them recognized. Alira. Holt repeated, taking a careful step closer to the glass. I'm Commander Darren Holt. Can you tell us what happened to you? She blinked slowly, as if measuring her words. How long has it been? Veer frowned. How long has what been? Her gaze drifted beyond them, as though looking through time itself. The silence, the stars, they weren't there before. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Arya tapped a few controls. Can you remember the last thing you saw before we found you? Alira's brow furrowed. The city was burning, she murmured. The sky was full of fire, and the architects were leaving. We thought they were gone forever. A city lost to time litter. In the Ardent's briefing chamber, the senior crew gathered around the central holodeck. A projection of the ruined structure they had explored hovered above the table, a lattice of angular spires and corridors buried beneath the moon's crust. This is where we found her, Holt began, gesturing at the structure. It's not natural, and according to Veer's scans, it's old. Very old. How old? Miri Chen asked. Pre-diaspora, Veer replied. Possibly older than the first human FTL jump. A low whistle rippled through the room. That's impossible, Quill muttered. Humanity didn't leave Sol until 2391. There's no way humans were building anything out here before then. That's assuming humans built it, Mary countered. We're looking at architecture that follows no known design principles. Self-replicating structures, recursive geometric patterns. Even the base material isn't anything we've cataloged. It's grown, not manufactured. Grown? Arya repeated, like, biological? Not in the organic sense, Miri said. But it's possible this was a living construct, engineered, evolving, adapting. And if Alira's story is true, she looked at Holt. Then whoever built it may not have been human. The room fell silent. The warning 3 hours later. Holt found himself back in the medbay. Alira was awake now, sitting upright in her containment field. The color had returned to her cheeks, though her eyes still held a distant, haunted look. You're recovering quickly, Holt said as he entered. She smiled faintly. It takes more than 1,000 years of sleep to kill me. Holt froze mid-step. 1,000? What? She tilted her head. How long has it been since the fall of Asaran? I don't know that name, Alira exhaled softly. Then it's been longer than I thought. He approached slowly. What happened to you, Alira? She was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her words were deliberate, measured like someone unsealing an ancient wound. They came from the dark between galaxies, the ones we called the architects. They built cities for us, guided our evolution, shaped the course of our civilizations. We thought they were gods. Her expression hardened. But we were only a project to them, a means to an end. Holt's heart pounded. What end? They were searching for something, she whispered. Something they had lost, or perhaps something they had never found. And when they realized we were not it, they abandoned us. Veer, who had been monitoring from the corner, frowned. Abandoned or destroyed? Her eyes met his. Both. The room grew colder. I was part of the resistance, Alira continued. We tried to sever their hold on us, to reclaim what they had built. They punished us. They burned our cities, scattered our fleets, and sealed me inside that tomb as a warning to anyone who dared defy them. Then why leave you alive? Holt asked. To remember, she said bitterly, and to witness their return. Something below Veer's voice broke over the ship-wide calm. Commander, you're going to want to see this. We've been running deep penetration scans beneath the structure. There's something down there. Holt frowned. Define something. Energy signatures. Massive ones. Whatever it is, it's still active, and it's waking up. Alira's eyes widened in alarm. No, it's too soon. What is it? Holt demanded. The core, she said, trembling. The heart of the lattice. If it reactivates, it will call them back. The architects. Yes, she whispered. And if they come back now, your species won't be ready. Holt stared at her through the glass. She wasn't lying. He could see the terror written in every line of her face. And deep inside, he knew she was right. Humanity wasn't ready for gods. But something else gnawed at him, something more immediate. If the core was reactivating, then their presence on the moon had likely triggered it. And that meant they were already out of time. Decision later that night. Holt stood alone in the observation deck, watching the pale light of the dead moon drift beneath the ship. Its surface seemed calm, silent, but he knew better now. Beneath that quiet crust, something ancient was stirring. He replayed Alira's words in his head over and over. They're coming back. The weight of command settled heavier on his shoulders than ever before. Was it his duty to destroy the core, as she urged, and risk unleashing whatever was buried there? Or should he try to study it, to understand what the architects were searching for? Commander, Veer's voice crackled through his earpiece. The scans are escalating. The core's energy output has tripled in the last hour. Holt's hands tightened on the railing. Wake the crew. Prepare a ground team. We're going back down. To shut it down? Veer asked. Holt's gaze hardened as the moon's scarred surface glimmered in the darkness below. To find out what we're dealing with, he said. And if necessary, to stop it. The Caliban fell through the thin exosphere like a silent blade, its hull trembling against the dust-laden winds that curled invisibly round the cratered surface. Inside, the landing team sat in tense silence, their faces lit by the dim amber glow of the cabin lights. Commander Darren Holt stood near the cockpit, staring at the gray wasteland expanding beneath them. It felt different now, heavier, charged. The first landing had been a mission of rescue. This one felt like a march into the heart of something ancient and watching, approaching the site. Reported Osei, hands steady on the flight controls. No changes to the terrain, but I'm reading faint energy pulses from beneath the surface. Whatever's down there is awake. Holt's jaw tightened. Set us down near the original fracture. We're going deeper. Behind him, Dr. Miri Chen was already prepping her scanning rig, fingers flying over a lattice of holo controls. If the core is activating, I need as much sensor data as possible. There's a chance we can map its architecture before it destabilizes, or before it calls them back, muttered Quill, checking the charge on her pulse rifle. Holt didn't respond. Alira's warning still echoed in his head. If the core reactivates, it will call them back. He wasn't sure which was worse, the idea that something powerful enough to shape civilizations was buried below their feet, or the thought that they might have already alerted it to their presence. Into the dark, the team touched down without incident and retraced their steps to the chasm. They had entered before, but this time, something had changed. The once dark passage now pulsed faintly with lines of azure light, threading through the walls like veins. The structure was no longer dormant. It's alive, Miri whispered, running a gloved hand along the glowing surface. This material isn't just conducting energy, it's transmitting information. The lattice is a neural network, which means it knows we're here, Quill said grimly. They descended deeper, following the pulses that seemed to guide them like breadcrumbs. As they moved, the air, or what passed for air in the thin subterranean chamber, grew warmer. Their sensors struggled to keep up with the data flooding in, fluctuating electromagnetic fields, trace elements of unknown isotopes, and a strange resonance that caused their comms to occasionally flicker with static. After an hour of careful descent, they reached a vast underground hall. The space was cathedral-like in scale. Towering pillars of crystalline alloy stretched into darkness above, and the floor beneath them was covered in a mosaic of shifting light. At the far end, suspended above a circular dais, was a massive spherical construct, spinning slowly, humming with a low, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate in their bones. The core, Miri breathed. It's even larger than I imagined. Holt stepped forward cautiously. Status, energy output is increasing steadily. Veer's voice crackled through their comms from orbit. Whatever you're doing down there, it's accelerating the activation sequence. It's not us, Miri said. It's responding to something else, the Guardians as they approach the dais. Quill raised a hand suddenly. Movement. Shapes detached themselves from the pillars, sleek, metallic figures that moved with fluid precision. They were humanoid, but too tall, too slender, their limbs tapering into intricate machinery. Their faces were featureless, save for a single vertical slit of blue light. Where eyes might have been. Contact, Osei hissed, raising his weapon. Orders, Commander. Hold commanded. They're not attacking. The figures formed a semicircle round the dais, their movements synchronized as if choreographed. Then, one of them stepped forward. Its voice was a harmonic blend of tones, more felt than heard. Identity, human. Origin, Sol descendant. Status, permitted. Holt exchanged a glance with Miri. Permitted? For what? The construct's head tilted slightly. Observation, assimilation, continuation of the pattern. Pattern? Miri echoed. What pattern? The construct didn't answer. Instead, it gestured toward the core, which now pulsed with increasing intensity. Runes, or perhaps mathematical symbols, cascaded across its surface, forming and reforming too quickly for the human eye to follow. And then, as if triggered by their presence, a holographic projection erupted into existence above the dais, a map of the galaxy. But this was no star chart Holt had ever seen. Lines of luminous data crisscrossed between stars, forming vast networks and spirals, some connecting systems that humans hadn't even discovered yet. What is this? Holt whispered. The archive, the construct replied. Record of design, record of progress, record of you. Humanity's true origin projection shifted, now displaying a series of images, a primordial Earth, swathed in volcanic ash, then simple organisms crawling from oceans, then primates walking upright. Each frame accelerated evolution, compressing billions of years into seconds, and in each stage, strange metallic artifacts appeared, subtly altering the environment. Are we seeing what I think we're seeing? Miri breathed. They manipulated us, Holt said, voice low. They engineered our evolution. Correction, the construct replied. We guided it. Humanity is the 97th iteration of biological intelligence seated in this spiral arm. You are the most successful so far. Quill's grip tightened on her rifle. So we're just lab rats to you? Incorrect. You are heirs, but you are also incomplete. The statement hung in the air like a thunderclap. What do you mean? Incomplete? Holt demanded. Your evolution is unfulfilled. The pattern requires integration. The next phase is delayed. Delayed by what? Resistance. The word made Holt's blood run cold. Alira, he muttered. She said she was part of a resistance. Designation, Alira 9, the construct said. Failed prototype, terminated. She's alive, Holt snapped, for the first time. The construct hesitated. Impossible. She's aboard our ship right now, Holt said. And she warned us about you. Then she remembers more than she should, the construct replied, its tone flattening. And that is dangerous. The Guardians stepped closer, their movements no longer purely passive. The collapse commander, Veer's voice cut through the tension, sharp and urgent. The core's power output just spiked to critical levels. If it keeps rising, it's going to breach the mantle. Holt's heart pounded. Options? Not many. You either shut it down from where you are, or get out now. The chorism deepened into a roar, the floor beneath them trembling. Fractures raced across the crystalline walls, and the Guardians shifted into defensive postures, their bodies merging and reforming into a single, towering sentinel. They're not going to let us leave, Quill said, raising her weapon. Then we make them, Holt replied. The chamber erupted into chaos. Pulse fire screamed through the air, ricocheting off shimmering shields. The sentinel struck with terrifying precision, each blow shaking the ground. Miri worked frantically at the core's interface, fingers flying across alien controls. I can't shut it down, she shouted. It's running a sequence. Something external is triggering it. External? Holt shouted over the din. From where? Miri's eyes widened. From orbit. Realization hit him like a hammer. Alira. Revelation. They fought their way back toward the surface. Each step a battle against collapsing tunnels and hostile constructs. When they finally breached the moon's crust and staggered into the pale light of the surface, Holt's calm exploded with urgent chatter. Commander. Veer's voice was strained. We have a problem. The core just linked with the Ardent systems. It's trying to interface with the ship. Cut the link. Holt barked. I can't. It's using our own comm ray against us. And then, through the calm, a familiar voice whispered, soft, trembling, and unmistakable. Please, I'm begging you. Don't fight it. Alira, Holt growled. What are you doing? I'm finishing what we started, she said. The architects must return. It's the only way. Return? Holt snapped. They destroyed your people. They created yours, Alira replied. And they will save you, or remake you when the time comes. The ground shuddered violently beneath them. Above, the sky split open as a column of light speared upward from the core, punching through the atmosphere and into the void beyond. They've been called, Alira whispered. And now, they're coming. Alarms screamed through the ship, red warning glyphs cascading across every screen. The lights dimmed, then flared back to life, cycling erratically. Holt clung to the handrail on the command deck as the vessel lurched again, not from enemy fire, but from something far worse. The core's beam just hit maximum output, shouted Veer, fingers flying across his console. It's pierced subspace. There's a dimensional rupture forming just beyond the moon's orbit. Talk to me, Lieutenant, Holt barked. What does that mean? It means, Veer said grimly, that something is coming through. Holt's mind raced. Alira's voice still echoed through the calm and unshakable. They've been called, and now they're coming. He slammed his fist on the console. Where is she? Containment breached 5 minutes ago, Arya reported, pale with shock. She's gone. We think she accessed the auxiliary transport bay. She's heading back to the surface. Quill growled. She's finishing whatever she started. Commander, Veer cut in, his voice tight. You need to see this. The main view screen shifted to an external feed. Above the moon, space itself was tearing open, not with fire or light, but with absence. A black wound spread against the stars, a perfect sphere of darkness that distorted the stars around it. And from within that void, shapes began to emerge. They were colossal, vast geometric constructs kilometers across, their surfaces etched with runes of flowing light. They moved with serene precision, like cathedral-sized machines drifting through the fabric of space. The architects had arrived. Descent into chaos bridged to engineering. Holt shouted, "Raj, I need emergency thrust online now." "Working on it, Commander," Raj's voice crackled through the chaos. "But the ship's systems are being hijacked. The core's signal is rewriting our control protocols." "Then cut the comm ray." "Already tried. It's fused open. The signal's piggybacking on our quantum entanglement links. I can't sever it." "Then we go down there and shut it off ourselves," Holt said. The bridge fell silent. "You can't be serious," Quill said, incredulous. "We barely made it out last time. The whole place is going critical. It's suicide. It's also our only shot," Holt said. "If that core stays active, we're nothing but a beacon. Those things out there," he jabbed a finger at the screen, "will follow the signal straight to Earth." The weight of his words sank into the crew like ice water. Billions of lives, entire civilizations, all at stake. "Prep a landing party," Holt ordered. "We end this, today." Return to the depths. Caliban roared toward the moon once more, this time under fire. Bolts of radiant energy lanced down from the newly arrived architect constructs, hammering the lunar surface and carving molten scars into the regolith. The once barren landscape was now alive with movement, spires rising from the ground like mechanical plants, drones swarming through the air in precise formations. "They're building something," Miri said, eyes wide as she stared out the viewport. "They're terraforming the moon in real time, or converting it," Quill muttered darkly. "Turning it into one of their machines." The shuttle shuddered as a blast wave rolled over them. Osei wrestled with the controls, teeth gritted. "We've lost main stabilizers." "Hold it together," Holt urged. "We're not done yet." Somehow, Osei managed to thread the shuttle through the chaos and bring it down near the original fracture. Sight. The team disembarked into a hellscape, the ground cracked and heaving beneath their boots, the air alive with alien hums and pulses. And there, at the center of it all, stood Alira. She was no longer the broken, fragile woman they had rescued. Her posture was straight, regal. Her eyes glowed with swirling patterns of light, and her skin shimmered with faint geometric lines that pulsed in rhythm with the core's heartbeat. She was no longer fully human. "Please," she said softly as they approached. "Don't fight this. Turn it off," Holt demanded. "Now, before they breach orbit." She shook her head. "I can't, and I wouldn't even if I could." "Why?" Arya asked, her voice trembling. "Why do this?" "Because humanity was never meant to stand alone," Alira said. "You are the result of their design, but you are incomplete. The architects will finish what they started." "Finish?" Holt spat. "You mean enslave?" "No," she said gently. "Evolve." The truth of Alira. Holt raised his weapon. "Then explain this. Who are you really?" Alira sighed, almost sadly. "I was Alira once, a scientist, a rebel, a woman who believed we could exist without them. But they rebuilt me, piece by piece. My mind, my body, my purpose. I am the bridge between what you are and what you must become. You lied to us. I told you the truth, just not all of it. I was left behind as punishment, but I was also left as a key to what? To humanity's next stage." The core roared beneath them, arcs of light lancing skyward as the architect fleet drew closer. Holt glanced at Miri, who was already hacking frantically into the lattice interface. "Talk to me, Chen. I think I can overload it," she said, sweat beading on her brow. "If I reroute the energy flow back into the main containment field, I might trigger a cascade collapse." "Translation?" Quill asked. "It'll blow," Miri said simply. "Big enough to destroy the core, and us with it," Arya said. Holt's jaw tightened. "Do it." Alira's eyes widened. "You destroy your best chance to ascend? You doom your species to stagnation? I'd rather be human than a slave to your gods," Holt growled. The final choiceth ground shook violently as the architect fleet descended into low orbit. One of the colossal constructs began to unfurl like a blooming flower, its inner mechanisms shifting and locking into place around the core's beam. The process was accelerating. They were minutes from full contact. "Miri," Holt shouted. "Status. Almost there," she yelled, fingers flying. "But I need more time." "You don't have more time," Quill shouted back. Suddenly, Alira was in front of Holt, faster than human reflexes could track. She grasped the barrel of his weapon and bent it like soft metal. "Stop this," she pleaded. "You're clinging to a broken idea of identity. Evolution isn't betrayal, it's destiny." Holt stared into her glowing eyes. "Then destiny will have to wait." He slammed a plasma charge into the core's access port and triggered the override. For a moment, the world went still, then the ground screamed. The core flared like a newborn star, blinding light devouring everything. Alira screamed, not in pain, but in fury. "You fool! You don't understand what you've done." "I don't need to," Holt said. "I just need to stop you." The end and the beginning explosion tore through the lattice like a supernova, collapsing the chamber in on itself. The architect fleet reeled back as the energy surge ripped through the moon's crust, severing the signal before the connection could complete. In orbit, the Ardent rocked violently as shockwaves rippled through space. Veer clung to the helm. "The signal's gone. They're withdrawing." "Are we in the clear?" Raj shouted. "For now," Veer said. "But they're not happy. They're scanning, watching." On the moon's surface, amidst the smoking ruins of the core, Holt stirred. His suit's systems were failing, his vision fading, but he was alive. Around him lay the shattered remains of alien machines, their once glorious lattice now silent and dead. And there, lying among the debris, was Alira. She was barely breathing, her once glowing eyes dim. As Holt knelt beside her, she reached out a trembling hand. "You think you've stopped them," she whispered, blood flecking her lips. But this was never their end. It was only the signal. "What does that mean?" Holt asked urgently, her lips curved into a faint, sad smile. They were already on their way. Her hand went limp. Epilogue. The sky trembles weeks later. The Ardent floated silently above the shattered moon. Official reports called it a successful mission, a containment operation, a victory. But Holt knew better. The architects had heard the call, and even though they had withdrawn for now, they had seen humanity, and they would not forget. Standing alone on the observation deck, Holt stared into the endless black. Somewhere out there, in the gulfs between galaxies, ancient minds were stirring, minds that had shaped the stars and rewritten evolution itself. "Please, I'm begging you." The words echoed once more in his mind, Alira's plea, once a cry for help, now a warning that felt far too late. Because in the dark beyond the spiral arm, something vast and patient was moving, and humanity's reckoning was no longer a question of if,